Hi, this is Patch Notes, where I explain so you can decide. Are 30 FPS games amateur hour? How do we know? Can we put pride aside to see if we can answer, is 60 FPS a console standard? To take this from the top, where'd the idea come from, and what is frame rate? To start, 6th gen consoles, that's PlayStation 2, Dreamcast, hyped online connectivity. Final Fantasy XI was the only online game I owned. Online gaming didn't take off until the 7th generation. On the other hand, you've seen a Burger King ad, right? That's a hype burger. You know your food won't look anything like that. It'll look like, yeah, that. Restaurant food. Because restaurants hype food. Sony, Nintendo, Microsoft hype consoles and video games. It's on us to see through their marketing. Real quick, let's compare gaming discourse to PC commentary. Maybe you remember the Gamers Nexus expose on Linus Media Group.
First clip from an LTT lab tour caught our attention, but it itself isn't worth commenting on. We have something wider in scope we want to comment on, and it's simply that we believe LTT, or LMG, is rushing too much to hit arbitrary and largely self-imposed deadlines that are causing frequent and sometimes significant data errors and information errors. And this conflicts with the ramping marketing surrounding accuracy and data-driven objective reviews that they're pushing for.
A channel with more than 16 million subs, LMG has decades of combined experience, yet they've been dropping misleading videos for months, eventually auctioning off Billet Labs' one-of-a-kind cooling system without permission. LMG is one of the most respected PC channels. If people that experienced slipped that hard in their own field, why is I don't know good enough for gamers? That's how we get dozens of channels saying 60 FPS is standard. To start, here's a flipbook. The faster the pages move equals images a second, creating smoother animation. Frame rate in video games, it's written on the tin. Images or frames per second generated during gameplay. A game running at 60 FPS equals 60 images a second. Feels smoother, responds faster, even looks cleaner. But where did 60 FPS as standard come from? Sticking to what we can confirm, by 2025, Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft all released 9th generation consoles, confirming their consoles could hit up to 60 or 120. Tracking it back, this blew up with the release of Gotham Knights. It wasn't the first, but that was the first time people really got pissed about it. Gamers were already on the fence after several underwhelming gameplay showcases. Then, October 14th, 2022, Warner Bros. Montreal announced Gotham Knights would run at 30 FPS. That 30 FPS announcement sparked a wave of 60 frames per second is standard videos, posts, etc. At the time, I didn't know much about frame rate. I was pretty sure of at least two things. In the years I'd spent learning game dev, nobody ever said 60 was standard, and lower the graphics, increases frame rate, nothing was ever that easy. Now, I can always be wrong, so I started looking. We can go back a bit further to 2020, where this tweet from Aaron Greenberg is often cited as the source. Greenberg's tweet says, 60 FPS will be the standard output, but the architecture allows us to support up to 120 frames per second. At the time, Greenberg was VP for games marketing at Microsoft. In short, if anyone knew, it's him. I've seen so many channels point to that one tweet. What bothers me, none of those channels ever mention Greenberg's second tweet where he spells it out 4 days later. Developers always have flexibility in how they use the power, so a standard or common 60 FPS is not a mandate. How about the article Microsoft published named Xbox the technology powering the next generation? Here's an excerpt. The team believed resolution and frame rate are creative decisions best left in the hands of title developers. That article was posted 2 months before either tweet. Combined, Greenberg's 2 tweets have 148 bookmarks. GameTube talks about respecting developers, but only if those developers agree without question. That's how we got here. 60 up to 120 FPS is on the box, that is true. I also agree, 60 makes for smoother gameplay. Influencers and outlets have been debating this for years. I don't know why. They could have just looked it up. Monster Hunter Wilds beta was the first time I remember even seeing the option to choose between visuals or smoother gameplay. The terms may be different, but the logic is the same. It's not always about fast-paced games versus text-based. This is a console discussion. Loads of PC games even lack resources or engine flexibility to offer options. There is absolutely nothing wrong with wanting or asking for higher frame rates. Bringing it back to developer intent, we ignore developers when they say it doesn't fit the game or it was too hard to hit, so the team wanted to focus on graphics. So what is it? Do we care about developer intent or not? Why are we ignoring answers directly from the people making the games that we're playing? I don't know, that seems weird. Here's what I found. Real quick, for reference, on screen is a list of console lifespans, marking the start and end of games by each console. The old consoles aren't listed, but we'll cover them in passing. Consoles with 10+ year release cycles versus short generation consoles. The short life cycles were consoles trying to keep up with Sony, or the consoles themselves weren't well received. Here's the part people really want to know about. Wiki's frame rate page says this: 60 frames per second has for a long time been considered the minimum frame rate for smoother animated gameplay. Honestly, that doesn't help. That's just somebody saying 60 FPS is standard with more words. 60 frames a second has been possible almost since the beginning. Sort of? Most games hit a variable 30 FPS, and like today, with scale up output. Still, for the sake of argument, how many games equals an average? Can we agree 43 to 51% would mark a console standard? If I'm being that generous, obviously you know this won't end in favor of 60 frames. On modern consoles, we've been able to hit 60 since around 2009. How many games is that?
It's over 9,000!
Counting the over 10,000 plus games, it starts the total at 5.1%. I've actually run these numbers before. People said I should only count 9th generation games. That is cherry picking data. Still, here are the 9th gen only console totals. Xbox S and X, 60 plus, 154 titles out of 630 games. PS5, 60 plus equals 358 titles out of 904 games. These numbers come from publicly accessible sites like Push Square, Xbox Central, you'll find the full list of the sources in the document. Now, on screen is the full breakdown. To cut to the quick because you can see the rest, combined 60 FPS games, 9th generation only, equals 512. 6 months ago, it was 39% flat. April 9th, 2025 equals 33.4%. Why is it 6 points lower than 6 months ago and 10 points under the lowest possible average? It's going down because the total number of games increases faster than the limited number of 60 FPS releases. Debug mode isn't about telling you what to think or justifying any developer's position. You don't have to like any of this. I just want gamers to have the whole story. So when we do ask for higher frame rates, less yellow paint, we know it is and isn't possible, and so gamers know who's telling the truth. Let's look at a breakdown of this real quick. This actually started with a Kotaku article for Assassin's Creed Valhalla. That article was the earliest example I could find reporting how Valhalla would run at 30 on consoles and sparking a reaction that gamers weren't happy with 30 FPS. Originally, I designed a project to tank frame rate. Then, my PC fried itself. Like, literally, it fried itself. My current rig is a 4090. Yeah, it's a great problem to have, sure. The thing is, there is no simple way to take this machine. I basically have to build an entire game poorly. So we're gonna have to compromise with the story time. Right now, you're looking at a basic Unreal 5 project. An empty room with some physics blocks. Can't forget Manny, the default engine model. Originally, I was going to show you the baseline frame rate for this third-person game template. Then introduce our star, the event tick. A tick is literally once a frame. So, 30 frames, 30 ticks. Using our flipbook analogy again, that's 30 images every frame of gameplay. As you can imagine, that is a lot of images. It's true, graphics knock on frame rate. Visual fidelity isn't the only knock-on effect. Imagine what happens if I plugged in all of the following: combat, particle effects, sound effects, the HUD elements, player abilities, all into one event tick, all running every single frame of gameplay, combined with enemies, environment, and the player's inputs. This is a real example. Unreal Engine devs are explicitly taught, don't ever do this. Overusing event tank will tank frame rate, and things we can't see impact gameplay. It's the kind of thing you're taught within the first hour. Let's go over the Warner Brothers Montreal Gotham Knights community post that started this. Hitting a stable 60 FPS is more than low-end graphics. They said it point blank. That's what made Gotham Knights the perfect real example of a game influenced by more than graphics, such as CPU-bound operations and overall game architecture. You don't have to believe me, because I didn't say that. Digital Foundry did. For some additional context, Stephen Obari is an experienced developer and software engineer. I took his multiplayer course. After that, I reached out. He was kind enough to share his thoughts. Graphics quality to system specs is an inverse relationship. As graphics quality increases, FPS on the average machine decreases. It's a consequence of the modern state of technology, and the state of technology of the average computer owned by the average gamer. The trade-off is a consequence of the modern state of technology, not the developer's ineptitude. Look, this is always about money, but rarely a lack of passion. 60 is standard, reduces technical understanding into a soundbite. Team size, console, and studio, every game makes trade-off. Gaming has problems, gamers have questions, and yes, you deserve answers. Outlets, channels, studios, creators, me. Question everything, engage critically, and most importantly, engage constructively. Challenge the sensationalism driving and distorting discussion. If the argument is 60 frames per second equals smoother gameplay, agreed, completely. Developers also agree completely. I have taken this argument apart every way I could think of. If the argument is 60 FPS is standard, eventually, just not today. Here's why these game tubers piss me off. Debunking 60 FPS is standard literally took seconds to disprove. Nothing more than a Google search. That's how they find that Greenberg tweet, and how they magically fail to reference the follow-up tweet. I mean, look, you can see it on my screen. Both tweets are listed. Checking the game numbers, that took about an hour or more. I was able to research, write, and script this in an afternoon. So, why are so many large channels getting it so wrong? If this is some grand game dev gaslighting conspiracy, I promise you, I can get the memo. Maybe money doesn't beat technological limitations. Debug mode is about putting my money where my mouth is. If you doubt me, check out Living on 1K a month. You don't need to trust me. Don't trust or believe me. My sources are linked downstairs. Some games prioritize massive worlds, others push visual fidelity. Hitting 60 FPS means picking your poison, balancing visual fidelity, performance, and most importantly, what that individual game needs. Look, the internet is gonna internet. Nothing I can say will stop that. But next time someone asks, why isn't this 60? The answer might be, that would be a completely different game. Now, hey, if you want to see more, I'd love it if you subbed. If you want to prove me wrong, I would also love it if you subscribed. Either way, let's have the conversation.
For the world must be free of bugs.